Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty One territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty Three territory. On the panel with me today, joining via Zoom, is Ms. Gail Anderson, and also via Zoom is Ms. Diane Knight. Our assessor today is Mr. Nathan Kupfer, and our administrative person, Mr. Zachary Mohan. My name is Bill Moreski. I am also on the panel and will be chairing this hearing. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application. We will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, then the applicant's testimony, followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 to 7 on the docket today. Mr. Mohan, please affirm the assessor's and the applicant's testimony.
Of course, Mr. Chair. Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Nathan Kupfer.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Marcelo Navarro.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll begin with item number 1, 704 Osborne Street. This is an application for revision of the amount of the assessed value. Mr. Kupfer, you may begin your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is file number 24-2010. The roll number is 120-010-74000. The street address is 704 Osborne Street, and the owner is Fort Rouge Management Limited. This is a commercial medical office, as will be, I believe, all the properties on our docket today. It's comprised of 2 stories. The original part was constructed in 1942, and then it looks like there was an addition put on in the late 1960s. And we have an effective year on the building of 1972. It's a smaller piece of land. The land area is only 2,728 square feet, and we have a leasable area on file of 4,100 square feet, and a 2025 assessment model driven of $747,000. Scrolling to page 2 and 3 of my brief, I've included some photos, both overhead and street view of the subject property. So as you can see, this property is located in South Osborne on the corner of Osborne and Baltimore Road. So I guess we call it the Riverview area. So it does have decent exposure, I would say, down on Osborne Street here, as well as being located within close proximity to a good amount of residential properties as well as commercial ones. So it has good access to clients as well. Moving to page 4 of my brief, you'll find my rent comparables table. So these are all medical office properties spread out throughout Winnipeg. Like usual with my comparables tables, try and include a spread of newer and older, some larger, some smaller, so that I can be consistent and just use the same comparables table rather than picking and choosing and omitting and including different ones. So with that in mind, I have included some with similar construction dates to the subject property, with the oldest being 1942, and then our newer ones in 2012. You can see I don't have anything specifically on Osborne. However, I would compare it largely to other major, semi-major thoroughfares within Winnipeg, such as Marion or Pembina or St. Anne's or St. Mary's. Those are type of similar levels of exposure that this property might get, in my opinion. Page 5 of my brief includes the income value workup for this property. So like I said, we have 4,100 square feet of total leasable area. That does include some basement area, which we have modeled at just over $4 a foot. So the idea here being that that basement is contributing some value to the property, whether it's used as storage or as staff offices or break rooms, that sort of thing. So it is being valued by our model, that being said at a much lower rate. So our merged rental rate here, taking the $49,259 of rent over the 4,100 square feet of space, would equate to just over $12 per foot. Everything here is model driven. I haven't touched any of these variables. So you're looking at 6% vacancy, 3% expenses, and an $8 shortfall. Again, I believe those will all be pretty consistent with what we'll see today. The only thing that stands out here is the cap rate, I think, being just a little bit low at 5.75%. Like I said, this is a bit of an older building. So our OFMs, I've noticed, have been getting lower cap rates assigned, again, by our model, especially these ones that are smaller, well-located medical clinics. So largely speaking, the theory behind this is that smaller clinics, smaller buildings, lesser value properties are going to have access to a larger swath of potential buyers, so it can transact quite easily on the market. Also, any repairs, breakdowns, any risk that might be seen with the property are largely going to be smaller dollar value repairs that don't require large scale machinery, that sort of thing, to do a fix because it is a smaller building. So with that being said, our modeled cap rate here is 5.75%. Moving down to page 6, the income value summary. Only one classification, one stream on this property, so that's all straightforward. As you can see, how it totals our $747,000 market value. Page 7 of my brief includes our capitalization rate tables. I'm sure you've all seen this before. This is largely comprised of 3 different agencies and their reporting for different category types, as well as the City of Winnipeg's comparison and what we have modeled to the 20th and 80th percentile. As you can see, medical office isn't specifically labeled here. It's effectively a subcategory similar to a bank. There isn't a large enough sample size to be tracked and reported on by these agencies, to my knowledge, at least within the City of Winnipeg. So it's not part of my, there's no specific medical clinic capitalization rates. However, I think they do best compare to the suburban A and B office capitalization rates, which you can see before you, largely range from 6 to 7% for some of the better ones, and then 7 to 8% or 6.75 to 7.75 for maybe some of the ones that aren't so well located. Page 8 of my brief contains the Municipal Act excerpts. I don't think we have anything to touch on here. Cooperation is all fine. Starting on page 9, I've included the income and expense mailer submitted by the property owners. As you can see, they've indicated that the property is fully owner-occupied and no income is being reported at all. And then again on page 11, it's labeled as 100% owner-occupied. So with that in mind, we are reliant on comparables. We don't have an NOI or any site-specific financials to compare it to. And I believe that's all I have for this property. So again, 2025 model-driven income value assessment of $747,000, which I'm going to recommend be confirmed today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, do you have any questions on the assessor's presentation?
I do, just briefly. Mr. Cuthbert, you acknowledged that you thought the cap rate was low, on the low side, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you have given an explanation as to what you think the model is doing. Now, is that something that you specifically were consulted on, that you consulted someone on, or is that basically just a hypothesis at this point?
Well, I've had discussions with other assessors within the department about why these capitalization rates come out the way they do, and these are the reasons that we discussed.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Ms. Anderson, do you have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Ms. Knight, do you have any questions?
No, sir.
And I have no questions as well. So, Mr. Navarro, you may begin your presentation.
Okay, we are looking at 704 Osborne Street. If you turn to page, I believe 6, you can see some overhead pictures, the general location of the property. And I'll ask you to turn to the income approach on page 12. In terms of the potential market rent, we don't dispute the 1201 that the assessor has chosen. Frankly, we didn't have too many rents of this type of property, so we didn't think that it was unreasonable. In terms of the vacancy, we're accepting most of the parameters that the assessor has chosen. Obviously, we think this is just down to a cap rate issue. From our perspective, we're not in support of this idea that there's a smaller pool or a larger pool of investors for this type of property, and that it would warrant maybe higher sale prices, less issues with repair and maintenance. We're looking specifically at the age of the property. I mean, and from our perspective, that in itself would entail some type of risk to it. And 5.25 is very much, sorry, 5.75 is very much on the low side for this type of property. We think this property would at a minimum start around 7. And simply because this property was built in 2 stages, one section being much older, we think that the cap rate would be higher. And the cap rate is a reflection of the condition of the house, or sorry, the condition of the property, the overall risk in terms of the type of investment. This is a single occupant property, so if you have any type of issues, you only have one party to address the concerns, as opposed to a multi-tenanted property where some of that risk is distributed. So yeah, we think the cap rate for this type of property would be higher. In terms of the breakdown, the income approach summary, you can see that on page 14. So you can see that the net operating income is essentially the same. Capitalization rate is the only difference. We're coming out to a value of 572,618 or 573. And in the appendix, you can find some of the subject property photos, starting on page 17, and then going through to, actually, there's quite a few. Essentially to the last page. So what we can see in the property photos is that obviously the property has been improved upon. So that would be the more it would be the inside of the property, the stuff, the 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 areas that are actually used. And I mean, they obviously do have some issues. I mean, you can see some cracking on them. You can see that it is dated even for an older property that has been updated. The finish does look somewhat dated. So I will leave it at that, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Mr. Cupper, do you have any questions on the applicant's presentation?
Just a couple quick ones. Thank you. Regarding the photos, I haven't personally been inside this property. Can you tell me when they were taken?
Yeah, they were taken September 27th, 2021.
Okay, so about 3 years.
Yeah.
Any changes or improvements that you're aware of throughout that time?
I haven't looked at the permits, but I don't believe there have been any changes. If you'd like, I can do a quick look at that and see if there have been, but I suspect not.
Okay, that's fine. I noticed the income and expense mailer. They were saying it's fully owner occupied, but they had a rental income listed. Do you know if that's a book rent or is there another potential income stream on the property?
I don't know of any other income stream on this property. No,
Oh, okay.
I couldn't answer that.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
Have they done anything with all those cracks in the ceiling and the walls since the last time you saw the place, or 2021?
I mean, I suspect that they have, simply because it's an eyesore, but in terms of the permitting on the property, there's nothing significant there. There's a small plumbing permit that was taken out in 2019. That's about it. So no significant changes from what we see.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Anderson, any questions?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. My only question is in regards to the cap rate. You indicated that given the age and configuration of the building and the condition that it's in as well, that it warrants a higher cap rate of 7%. You've proposed 7.5%. So I'm trying to just understand how you arrived at 7.5.
Well, the property looks like it's been updated over the years. So clearly we're not stepping into a property that was built in the late 60s or reflective of that time frame. So clearly there have been some updates made to it. But when we look at the cap rate scale, and I'm looking particularly at our cap rate scale from our cap rate study. So you can find that on page 19 of the cap rate study that we submitted along with this evidence.
$19?
Yeah, page 19.
That's a picture of a building.
Yeah,
Oh, in the cap rate study.
Okay.
So there's a
I-
cap rate study that came along with this evidence.
Yeah, got it.
What page is that? Sorry.
It's page 19 of the cap rate study, not the property.
Oh, the cap rate, gotcha.
Yeah.
I got you. Got you now. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. So there's two categories that we have for suburban office, the A and Bs. And our cap rate ranges for the suburban A class are 6.25 to 6.75. These would be the newer type of suburban offices. We're not looking at that. We're clearly looking at a suburban B. And that ranges between 6.75 and 9.50. Now, a 6.75 from our perspective would be something slightly newer, maybe built sometime in the mid 80s or up to about the mid 1990s. And, you know, reflecting still a newer type of fit and finish. a 9.5 from our perspective would be close to a tear down. There would not be much functional life left in it. So you can see that we're kind of patterning ourselves somewhere in the middle of that. So that's how I got to a 7.5. But yeah, basically we are noting the age of this property and that it was built in two specific eras, the 1940s and then the 1960s, with updates to the interior, obviously. But if you're looking at the foundation, the wall structures, those would be original. There would be updates to probably mechanicals. I'm speculating on mechanicals because I don't know exactly what type of heating they have. But yeah, I mean, when you're getting to this type of age, I think it warrants something a little bit higher in terms of a cap rate. And 5.25 from our perspective, we would be putting on higher end properties. We don't have that perspective of, as the assessor explained. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your presentation. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
So in your cap rate study, this is for offices in Winnipeg, is that correct?
Yeah, this would be for Winnipeg. We don't actually do one for outside of Winnipeg. There's limited information coming from outside of Winnipeg.
And does it include all types of offices, including medical and dental offices, would just be kind of mixed in there? Nothing specific on?
They would be mixed in there. And you see some of, regular office and medical use offices blended into the Class A's, Class B's. So yes, it's basically just a mixture of everything, office related.
And that's summarized on page 19.
Correct.
The Class B is 7.7, or sorry, 7.25 to 7.25 or 7.75, excuse me. That's the range.
No, the Class B on page 19 shows 6.75 to 9.50. It's the very last one on the chart, at the bottom. Suburban B.
Right.
So 6.75 to 9.50.
Okay, so it's suburban and not downtown.
No, it's not downtown.
Okay, I have no further questions. Anything in summation, Mr. Kupfer?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Anything in summation, Mr. Navarro?
Nope, nothing for me. Thank you.
That then will conclude this item number 1704 Osborne Street. We'll proceed then to item number 2669 Osborne Street. This is an application for revision of the amount of the assessed value. Mr. Kupfer, you may begin your presentation.
That's file number 24-2168. Roll numbers 120-104-84000. And the street address is 669 Osborne Street. The owner is Bowbird Holdings Limited. This is again a commercial medical office. This time it's all one story. Originally constructed in 1968 with an effective year of 2003. The land area is quite a bit larger here, just under 9,000 square feet. The leasable area is just under 4,000 square feet. So we have a 2025 model-driven assessment for $1,552,000, again using income, which I'm going to recommend be confirmed today. If you scroll to page 2 of my brief, you'll notice that we do have a recent sale on the property. So our information showing that this property transacted as of April 1st, 2020 for $1.5 million. So this is a former RBC bank location, and then it was converted after the sale. Page 3 of my brief. So these are pretty recent Google Street View photos after the conversion here. You can see it's a skin clinic. And it's just further north from the last property we discussed. This one's on the corner of Osborne and Walker. Page 4 of my brief, I've included all the same rent comparables you'll be seeing throughout the day today, same as the last property. Page 5 of my brief has the income value summary here. So like I said, the property was fully renovated after that sale. So it used to be a bank, it was turned into a clinic. There is a permit, which unfortunately I omitted here for my brief, but it was for $1 million to essentially strip the bank down and rebuild it as a medical office clinic. So based on that, we do have the high quality finish here, giving it a higher rental rate of just over $23 a foot. Vacancy of 5.5%, 3% expenses, and an $8 shortfall. And in this case, a 5.25% cap rate, which is resulting in that value of $1,552,000. In this case, I think our parameters are well justified and supported both by that sale price and the renovations which occurred shortly after. I have a hard time seeing this property as being valued at less than what we have it modeled at. Page 6 of my brief, again, only one classification, one income stream, so that's all straightforward. We've already discussed the capitalization rate and Municipal Act excerpts here. Page 9, 10, 11, and 12 of my brief are the income and expenses submitted by the property owner. So this would have been when the RBC was still in the building, and I believe it's, yeah, so if you look on page 11, you can see that they're only listing 2 months worth of income here from April 2022 to the end of May 2022, and that's why the income is so low. My understanding is RBC would have moved out after that May 31st, 2022 lease end date, and that's when renovations would have begun on the property to convert it over to the skin clinic. So that's why the income is so low for this reporting period here. And that's all I have on this property. So again, we have a model-driven assessment here of just over $1.5 million. The property sold for $1.5 million in 2020 and then was extensively renovated. So I'm recommending that assessment be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, any questions on the assessor's presentation, please?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
You're talking about renovations. So when did the new applicant take possession of the property and when did those renovations get completed?
My understanding is the new tenant would have, well, the new owner took possession right after the sale date in April of 2022. My understanding in looking over the income and expenses is that they allowed RBC to conclude their lease within the building, which was midway through 2022, and then renovations would have begun shortly after that. The permit date here I can pull was issued April 2022 and finalized in July 2023.
And this is the value at April 1st, 2023, correct?
It is, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Anderson, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
And I have no questions. Mr. Navarro, you may begin your presentation.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask for confirmation of this property.
So noted.
Okay.
Anything in summation? Mr. Pepper?
No, thank you.
Anything in summation, Mr. Navarro?
No summation, thank you.
That then will conclude item number 2, 669 Osborne Street. We will proceed then to item number 3, 1200 Waverly. This is an application for revision of the amount of the assessed value. Mr. Kupfer, you may begin your presentation.
This is file number 24-1750. The roll number of 0307-160-7200, and a street address of 1200 Waverly Street. The owner is the Waverly Business and Science Center Incorporated. So this is a newer commercial medical office. This one was constructed in 2001. It's also quite a bit larger, with a land area of over 57,000 square feet and a leasable area of 16,666 square feet. We have a 2025 model-driven assessment of $4,468,000, which I'm recommending be confirmed today. Scrolling to page 2 of my brief, you can see the subject sale history as well as the photos. The sale, I believe, would have been a land sale back before the construction of the property, as it was constructed in 2001. You can see the location of the clinic. So this one's on the corner of Waverly and Buffalo Place, so South Waverly. Scrolling to page 3, you can see some photos of the building. It is quite a nice building. It's all one story. It's pretty well spread out. There are a few different tenants in the building, but I believe all of them are medical in nature. Page 4 of my brief, the same rent comparables you've been looking at today. So in this case, you'd be comparing to some of the newer built ones in that South Winnipeg area. Page 5 of my brief shows the income stream. So like I said, there are a few different tenants in the building. I believe the largest one is Waverly Eye Care Center. I'll double check that on the income and expense statement. So you can see the breakdown for the potential rents, most of them being high quality finishes. Again, it's a newer, pretty nice building. Your actual blended rent here would be about $18.61 by my calculation. Vacancy of 6%, 3% expenses, and an $8 shortfall. Again, all standard for our model. And then a capitalization rate in this case of 6.15% is how we derive that value of $4,468,000. Nothing really to note on pages 5, 6, 7, and 8 until we get down to the income and expenses here. Beginning on page 9. So you can see there's a breakdown of the tenants on page 10. So there's Waverly Eye Care Center Incorporated, looks like Hodgson Financial, Can-Am, Bior Birch Incorporated, Naturopathic Family Medicine, Jelensky Holding, and CDPC Winnipeg. I haven't looked up all those individual tenants, but you can see the spaces that they occupy there. And then in terms of the actual meat of the income and expenses, I'd note that they report a negative net operating income for this cycle. I don't have all the information to explain that, but I would note that they have a $200,000 caretaker expense on this property, which I would identify as being pretty high. I understand it's a medical office, so cleaning standards are likely higher as well. Maybe that has something to do with it. And then they've also included $70,000 of amortization and interest, which is generally something we would kick out when reviewing this for assessment purposes. So all that being said, the NOI is reported as negative. We have a modeled assessment of $4,468,000 based on the parameters that I've already mentioned there on page 5. And I'm going to recommend that assessment be confirmed today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, any questions on the assessor's presentation?
No, I think this would carry over from the previous ones. This has all been model driven.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yep. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Ms. Anderson, any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No, sir.
And I have no questions. Mr. Navarro, you may begin your presentation.
Okay, this is 1200 Waverly Street. On page 8, you can see the general location of the property and an outside picture of it. We can skip to page 13. So at the top of page 13, you can see the comparisons that we've used for the rent. And obviously, in most cases, we've just gone, I believe, with the actuals. I could be wrong on that. We have a rent of $18.41 on it, based on the comparisons that we have there. Vacancy allowance of 6 and a shortfall rate of $8, non-recoverables of 3%, and a cap rate of 6.50. Relating back to the same cap rate report that we submitted for all of these properties, again, page 19. Our suburban A class ranges between 6.25 and 6.75. This property is in that suburban A category, in the middle of the range. We simply leave a bit of room for those properties that we think are at the very bottom in terms of the cap rate, the better properties that we've seen in terms of medical offices. We're not disputing that this is a newer property and it's a nice property, but certainly we leave some room for those properties that we think are superior. So that's why we've gauged it at the middle side of the suburban A category. And I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Mr. Kupfer, any questions on the applicant's presentation?
I just noticed there's no photos for this brief, Mr. Navarro. Have you inspected the property?
I haven't inspected it. I've been in this property for personal reasons, like, but not to inspect.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
Just one. Your value on page 15 says 4,231,705, and your total value for the property is 4,231,000.
The total value actually should be 4,232,000.
Okay, thank you. All I want to know.
Ms. Anderson, any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
I have no questions. Anything in summation, Mr. Kupfer?
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Mr. Navarro?
Nope, nothing for me. Thank you.
Okay, that then will conclude item number 3, 1200 Waverly. We'll move then to item number 4, 1835 Corridon. This is an application for revision of the amount of the assessed value. Mr. Kupfer, you may begin your presentation.
So this is file number 24-3395. The roll number is 1207-3143-000. Street address is 1835 Corridon Avenue, and the owner is Clad Center for Inflammatory and Arthritic Disease. This is again a medical office. This one is 2 stories. It was constructed in 2003, so again we're dealing with a newer clinic. The land area is 6,397 square feet, and the leasable area is just under 5,000 square feet spread out over 2 stories. So we have a 2025 model-driven assessment of $808,000, which I'm going to recommend be confirmed today. Scrolling down to page 2, you can see we have no sales on the property to go off of here. The property is located directly on the corner here of I believe it's Corridon and Lockwood. So in my opinion, it's a pretty well located clinic. Page 3 of my brief, you can see the photos. Again, early 2000s construction, so fairly new building. Page 4, you can see my same comparables that you've been looking at throughout the day today. And then on to page 5 is our income value summary. So 55,712 of potential rent over just under 5,000 square feet, 4,989. You're looking at a blended rate of $11.17, including that basement space, which is weighing it down at just over $4 a foot. Again, everything here is model driven, 5.5% vacancy, 3% expenses, and $8 shortfall. All of these are applied whether the building's 100% occupied or 100% vacant. Again, it's done by the model. And then a capitalization rate of just over 6%. Again, it's a smaller clinic, it's a newer clinic, it's a well-located clinic. I think all of those things are likely contributing to that lower capitalization rate. And that's how we're deriving our income value of $808,000. Page 6 of my brief has the income value summary, all pretty straightforward there. Pages 7 and 8, I believe we've already discussed today. So starting on page 9 is the income and expense summary. This property is primarily owner occupied. I believe they do have a small subtenant, but the income and expense isn't particularly reliable. There's a huge negative net operating income because the main portion of the building is not generating any income because it is owner occupied. And you can see that on the tenant list there. As BRJ Thompson Medical Corp, I believe. So don't have a site-specific income and expense to compare to, but I would reiterate it's a nicer building, it's in a good location, it's newer, and I think all those things are contributing to our higher rental rates and our lower capitalization rate here. And again, I'll confirm that that 2025 assessment of $808,000, I believe should be confirmed today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Navarro, any questions on the assessor's presentation?
Mr. Cuthbert, have you been in this location?
I haven't, no.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Good night. Any questions?
No, sir.
Ms. Anderson, any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
I have no questions. Mr. Navarro, you may proceed with your presentation.
This is 1835 Corridon. If you flip to page 6, you can see the outside picture and general location. This, like some of the other properties, were inspected, I believe, at the same time around I think it was September 2021. What I would say about this structure is that it's kind of unique. It's not really designed like a medical office, and you can see by the details of it that it resembles more a house than anything else. Wood frame structure. We had a hard time putting this into the A category, suburban A category, simply because it's not the same type of design that we would see for an A-class property. Our issue is that it's essentially a house that's being used as a medical office. And whether it was, built that way specifically, I don't know. It just happens to be a structure that I don't think is as valuable in the marketplace as, say, the previous property that we just looked at, which clearly is in that suburban A category. So the assessor's cap rate for that would reflect, you know, a suburban A property, but let's just flip to the income approach now on page 11. We've elected a rent of 1126. You can see some of our comparables there. Vacancy allowance, not sure why we have a 5.5. I just want to confirm that that is correct, 5.5 vacancy. Shortfall is 8. And the cap rate is 7%. So our net operating income was 49,317. With the 7% cap rate, we come to about 704,535 or 705 rounded. Let's flip to some of the pictures. On page 17, you can see some of the interior pictures on the second floor. The exterior pictures on page 18. The basement storage areas on page 19. And page 20, again, some more basement storage. On page 21, main floor exam rooms. And on page 22, main floor exam rooms. And the reception area on page 23. So while we acknowledge that this is a newer property, from our perspective, this is a house that's being used as a medical office. So we couldn't put it into that A category. We put it into the B category at a 7% cap rate. I'm open for questions now.
Mr. Cupper, any questions on the applicant's presentation?
Just a couple, thank you. Mr. Navarro, my information showing that this building was constructed, as you said, in 2003 as a medical office clinic. Is that concurrent with your records?
Yeah, we're not denying that it's being used as a medical office.
Okay, so when it was constructed, when it was designed, that was keeping in mind that this would be a medical office, not a residential dwelling or a house.
Mm.
Okay.
I think if you take a look at the picture, you can see what we're saying.
Okay. Well, those design choices, those style choices, that layout, would that largely be to conform to the area and the surrounding properties?
Well, I know this area quite well, so I know that there are commercial buildings that are designed not like this property, and this would not be atypical of the area.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Ms. Anderson, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No, sir.
So if this was a quote unquote normal office building, you would put it in the A category, is that correct?
I mean, I think there are other newer medical offices on Corydon Street, which obviously we would have no issues putting into that A category. I hesitate on this one simply because I'm just not seeing it's not comparable to some of the others. I mean, look at Corydon, the minor injury clinic is located on Corydon Street. I don't think anyone would dispute that's an A-class building. It's built like a medical office. It's a steel structure. This is, I mean, you can look at the pictures. It's designed as a house. It's being used as a medical office, but yes, the structure is essentially a house.
Okay, I have no further questions. Anything in summation, Mr. Comfort?
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Anything in summation, Mr. Navarro?
Nope, nothing for me. Thank you.
That then will conclude item number 4, 1835 Corydon. So we can move forward then to item number 5, 1770 Taylor. This is an application for revision of the amount of the assessed value. And Mr. Kupfer, we have a non-co-op request on this property, correct?
I'm going to withdraw that request, and I'll get to that a bit during my presentation.
Okay. So noted.
So this is file number 24-1828. The roll number is 1207-2314-700, and the street address is 1770 Taylor Avenue. The owner is a Manitoba Limited Company. This is a one-story medical office. It's quite a large lot. Land area is almost 22,000 square feet. The leasable area of 8,559 square feet, all located on one story. This is a newer building, and it has been also recently upgraded. So it was constructed in 2000, and we have an effective year of 2015 on it. The 2025 model-driven assessment here is $2,599,000, which I'm going to recommend be confirmed today. Page 2 of my brief, you can see an overhead view of the site as well as some recent sales. So this property was purchased most recently in May of 2020, and then it has been significantly renovated since then. My understanding was the reporting didn't come in largely because renovations were being undertaken throughout this time frame. Hence why I've withdrawn the request. There likely was no income and expenses to report as they were renovating the property. So currently, this is a Aqua eye laser clinic. I believe they do LASIK eye surgeries here. You can see the photos on page 3, all nice and new, newly renovated. Page 4 of my brief shows our rent comparables, and page 5, the OFM income value workup. So we're looking at a blended rate on this one, 162,878 divided by the 8,559. Blended rate of just over $19 a foot, so not particularly high, given the quality of the structure and the location, in my opinion. We have a vacancy of 5.5%, expenses of 3%, and a shortfall of $8. In this case, a lower capitalization rate of 5.6%. This is how we're deriving our value of $2,599,000. Page 6 of my brief shows the income value summary. Again, only one classification and one stream on the property. Page 7 and 8 we've covered, and pages 9 and 10 show the income and expense information. Again, was submitted, it was not returned to us. Pages 11 and 12 show some of the information on the permits. So this is, just read it for you here. New tenant fit up, Aqua eye laser eye surgery. To alter interior and exterior of and occupy the existing 859 square meter single-story, single-tenant building to operate as an eye surgery clinic. Interior alterations to include demolition and construction of interior partition walls, demolition of existing mezzanine, and construction of partial second floor with an existing envelope. Exterior alterations to include a new front facade, infill, and creation of new windows and door openings, pile foundations, and construction of heavy stairway at rear. Mechanical and electrical work, and the declared construction value is about $1.2 million. So while we don't have site-specific income and expense information, again, I believe these renovations were taking place during the reporting period, so I don't feel like penalizing them for that. I would recommend that our assessment be confirmed. Again, they purchased it for $1.725 and then put $1.2 million worth of work into it. And we have it modeled at just under 2.6 million. So again, 2025 assessment, 2,599,000. I'm going to recommend that be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, do you have any questions on the assessor's presentation?
I don't. I think this is all model driven again, so no further questions to ask. Thank you.
Ms. Anderson, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No, sir.
You mentioned that it was a lower cap rate. And the reasons for that were the renovations. Would that be correct?
Yeah, 5.6 5.6 is what our models kicked out. So not only is it a newer building, it's also been renovated again. It's well located. There's really not any knocks that I can make against this one. So I am in support of that capitalization rate as being one of the fact that it is in the 5%, admittedly that is low, but I think it's well supported both by the sale, the renovations, and the fact that the building is quite a nicer one.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Navarro, you may begin your presentation.
Okay, this is 1770 Taylor Avenue. And we can just flip to page 8 and 9 to see the general location of the property. After that, we can go to page 13. And we are using a rent of $19.90 for this property, a rent potential of $172,450. And that is roughly $10,000 more than the model. In terms of the vacancy allowance, 550, shortfall is 8, and non-recoverables of 3%. Obviously, the difference is the capitalization rate between the model and what we are electing for this property. So I'm not doubting that this is a good property, and obviously they put money into it. The problem is that even on the A-class properties where our basement is 6.25, we can't get to a 5.60. At the very minimum, I think this property would get a 6.25 cap rate on it. We have a 6.75 cap rate. That's obviously at the upper end of our Class A suburban, but we just don't see how 5.60 is being estimated by the model. So again, our value as presented is $2,285,388 or $2,285,000 rounded. And I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Mr. Kupfer, any questions on the applicant's presentation?
No questions from me. Thank you.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
Just in regards to your statement of 6.25, is that what you're thinking it really should be?
No, I think 6.25 I kind of reserve for the better medical offices. So if you're familiar with the refit center, sorry, not the refit center, the minor injury clinic on Corridon, that would probably be a 6.25. If you're familiar with the medical clinic on Sterling Lyon and Lorimer, that's a much newer medical facility, multi-floor with many specializations within that office, that medical office. That's what I would reserve for a 6.25.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you.
Ms. Anderson, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
And I have no questions. Anything in summation, Mr. Kupfer?
No, thank you.
Anything in summation, Mr. Navarro?
No, thank you.
Therefore, that then will complete item number 5, 1770 Taylor. We will then move to item number 6, 1210 Lorette. This is an application for revision of the amount of the assessed value. Mr. Kupfer, you may begin your presentation.
This is file number 24-1944. The roll number is 120-155-73100. Excuse me. Street address is 1218 Lorette Avenue, and the owner is a Manitoba Limited Company. This is a 3-story medical office clinic. Again, fairly new, constructed in 2006. No major renovations or anything, so the effective year is still 2006. The land area is 3,361 square feet, and the leasable area is 4,862 square feet, again spread out over those floors. We have a 2025 modeled assessment of $1,202,000, which I'm going to recommend be confirmed today. Page 2 of my brief shows the overhead photo and the subject sale history. So all these sales are prior to the construction, I believe. These would have been land transactions for vacant land. This smaller parcel, it's located on the corner of Nathaniel and Lorette. So we're just tucked off of Grant Avenue here. On the other side of Grant would be the Grant Park Shopping Center. As you can see down below, you can see a nice photo of the building. This one, I believe, is taken, I'm not sure if you would call it the front or the back. There's certainly an entrance there for the Center of Natural Medicine. Similar to that property we saw in Corydon, this one does have a bit of almost like a residential finishing and feel. I believe that's largely because it is tucked into a residential neighborhood. So I'm not sure if that was just stylistic or if that's based on the actual zoning, but that's the way it was built. And as you can see, it is 3 stories. Page 4 shows my rent comparables. And then page 5, the income value workup. So we're not calling this a high-end finish. This is just standard finish we have on this property. $80,986 in potential rent over that area, 4,862 square feet. Derives a blended rate of $16.66. Vacancy of 5.5%, expenses at 3%, shortfall at $8, and in this case, a capitalization rate of 6% flat is how we derive our value of $1,202,000. Page 6 shows the income value summary. Again, one classification here, one income stream, so that's all straightforward. Pages 7 and 8 we've already covered here throughout our presentations today. And then starting on page 9 shows the income and expense information. This property is indicated to be fully owner occupied. So my understanding is these would be book rents or book numbers coming from the owner themselves, not something we're going to rely on as arm's length rents. And beyond that, I don't think I have any other information on this property. So again, fairly new office clinic located just off of Grant, constructed in 2006. And we have a 2025 model assessment of $1,202,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, any questions on the assessor's presentation? You're muted.
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No, sir.
Ms. Anderson, any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
And I have no questions. Mr. Navarro, you may proceed with your presentation.
Okay, this is 1218 Lorette Avenue. You can see the general location there on the corner of Nathaniel and Lorette Avenue on page 6 and an outside picture. This is a wood frame structure. It's not a house. I mean, obviously it's built larger than a house, but again, we're kind of questioning the design of the building itself. So on page 12, we are looking at an $18 rent. That is slightly higher than what the model has spat out. Vacancy of 5.5, shortfall of $8 per square foot, 3% non-recoverables. And again, on page 14, you can see what it breaks down to, again, is a cap rate fight. From our perspective, this would be a Class B office. So at the very bottom of the Class B, we wouldn't put this into the Class A category. But we are acknowledging that this building is newer, so we've given it the lower cap rate from our study. And we come out to a value of $1,130,447 or $1,130,000 rounded. And on page 17, you can see pictures of the property. On the back side, there is parking there. the interior reception area on page 19. On page 20, you can see a exam room, and on page 21, an office or consultation room. And there on page 22, you can see a picture of a stairwell. I'm open for questions.
Mr. Kupfer, any questions on the applicant's presentation?
Just about the income and expense mailer, can you speak to the information that was provided? Are these book rents, or is there a different income stream being calculated?
I can't speak to this. I mean, it is probably a book rent, but that's a guess. This is owner occupied, so I would have ignored that anyways.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Ms. Anderson, any questions?
Oh, my only question is in regards to the photographs, the interior photographs. Do you have a date as to when those were taken?
Yes, I believe these were all taken around the same time as the initial ones that we've seen in our, so around September of 2021, I believe.
Okay, thanks. That's my only question.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No, thank you.
And I have no questions. Anything in summation, Mr. Kupfer?
No, thank you.
Anything in summation, Mr. Navarro?
No, thank you.
That will then conclude item number 6, 1210 Lorette Avenue. We will proceed to the last item on our property, number 7, 1180 Pembina. This is an application for revision of the amount of the assessed value. Mr. Kupfer, you may begin your presentation.
Thank you. I just wanted to start by saying the income and expense information, please disregard pages 10 and 11. It looks like an extra bit of information was included there for a different property. So we'll say the brief ends at page 9 on this one. This is file number 24-3573. The roll number is 0309050210. Street address is 1180 Pembina Highway, and the owner is Malado Enterprises Limited. So this is again a commercial medical office, all located on one story, constructed in 1972. Land area is a little under 10,000 square feet, and the leasable area is a little under 5,000 square feet. So our land to building ratio, as you can see, right around 1.5. We have a 2025 model driven assessment here of $1,087,000, which I'm going to recommend be confirmed today. Page 2 of my brief shows no recent sales of the subject property and gives you an overhead view of the property. So again, it's quite well located. It's right on the corner of Pembina and North Drive. It's a larger property. As I already stated, you can see the parking stalls out back, and the building fronts onto Pembina. Page 3 of my brief shows some Google Street View photos of the building. You can see the nice red brick finish there. Moving to page 4, our comparables. Again, no inclusions or omissions here. These are the same comparables I've provided for all of our medical clinics today. Page 5 of the brief shows our income stream. So it is broken down amongst 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 premises, some a bit larger, some a bit smaller, but totaling $81,228 in potential rent over an area of 4,896 square feet. It gives you a blended rate of $16.39. Vacancy being attributed to this property is 5.5%, 3% expenses, and $8 shortfall, as with all other properties we've seen today. And in this case, the model is using a capitalization rate of 6.65%. And that's how we're deriving our value of $1,087,000. Page 6 of my brief shows the income value summary. Nothing really of note here. It's all one stream, all one classification. Pages 7 and 8, we've covered already our capitalization rate tables. And then page 9, which we're calling the end of the brief, shows the profit and losses reported, again, just for 2022. I would note that the net operating income for this reporting period is quite low, and the expenses are quite high. I haven't done a stabilized multi-year analysis or anything on the property, so I can't speak to if these are regular expenses or if some of them came in a bit higher this year than maybe some other years, or if it was in fact the income that was being reported low. But I don't think it was the income, given what we have modeled here. I think it's the expenses which are a bit high for this reporting cycle. But regardless, we're looking at 2025 model-driven assessment, $1,087,000, using net operating income of $72,303 and a cap rate of 6.65%. And that's all I have on this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro, any questions on the assessor's presentation?
I just one question. I mean, this is the last property in the list, and this is the highest cap rate that we've achieved at this point. So what do you think is contributing to that? Is it the fact that there's multiple units in this?
I think this is one of the it could be the fact that there's multiple units. It could be that it's a bit larger. It's built in the 70s, so not particularly new, but also not as old as some of the other ones. But yeah, that's what I would hypothesize.
Okay, those are my only questions. Thank you.
Ms. Anderson, any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No, sir.
So I just want to clarify Mr. Navarro's question, excuse me. He said that the cap rate is high. Did I hear that correctly?
I think he was pointing out that it's the highest of the modeled cap rates of the properties we've discussed today at 6.65.
Okay, and you said it was because it was a newer property?
It's a bit older. The effective year hasn't been adjusted, so it's still all the way back in 1972. Yeah, beyond that, I don't have much information on it. Like I said, sometimes with much smaller office buildings, our model will give it a lower capitalization rate. This is kind of a mid-sized building, and one without any notable improvements or renos that I can see.
So on the expense, actual expense, you didn't go through these lines at all and try to figure out where the issue was in terms of high expense amount?
I did go through the expenses, and there was no large or glaring line items, so to speak. I would note that they're including their non-recoverables at the bottom, but that's only accounting for an additional $2,000. Yeah, beyond that, it could be a combination of things. Could be that the income was a bit lower. Yeah, don't have any more information than that.
Okay, I have no further questions. Mr. Navarro, you may begin your presentation.
Okay, we're looking at 1180 Pembina Highway. You can turn to page 8, see the general location. I think this would be categorized as the Wildwood area neighborhood. On page 13, you can see the rents that we've used for the most part, we've used actual rents. And these range between $10 and $14.50 per square foot. We've adjusted 2 of them up to $11. Unit 101 and Unit 104, giving us a potential rent of $57,726. If you look at page 16, that is higher than the actual potential rent for the property, as noted in their income and expense summary on page 16. We've used a vacancy allowance of 5.5%, shortfall of 8%, non-recovered expenses of 3%, and in terms of the capitalization rate, a capitalization rate of 7%. We've come to a value of 723,551 or 724,000 rounded. Beyond that, we've just included the income and expenses submitted by the property owner, and I'm open for questions.
Mr. Cupper, any questions on the applicant's presentation?
Just that the breakdown of the tenants and the individual rents that are being paid wasn't included in this mailer. Is that information you got directly from the client or a previous statement? Previous statements. Okay. Yeah, those are my questions. Thank you.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
I'm just looking at the physical statement. Previous year reconciliation. What is that?
Which page are you looking at?
16.
Well, this would be the submission by the owner. So every year, as you know, they have to submit income and expenses for the property. I think they've just submitted their own in terms of their income and expenses. I don't have anything beyond that.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Anderson, any questions?
Just in regards to the cap rate that you proposed, selected 7% you're requesting, so you consider this a suburban B?
B.
On your, okay. Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you.
So these tenants here, you have 5 of them, and that maxes out the occupancy in this complex.
Yeah. So taken from a prior year, but those rents would still be in place. Again, we're judging that against the actual income that's been brought in by this property. So we feel that we are somewhat accurate. We've adjusted where we needed to adjust, and we are roughly, I think, $9,000 higher or so than the actual. So.
Thank you. Anything in summation, Mr. Cupford?
Nothing from me. Thanks.
Anything in summation, Mr. Navarro?
Nothing for me. Thank you very much.
That then will conclude this item, number 7, 1180 Pembina. And we have heard all the items scheduled, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you very much, Mr. Navarro and Mr. Cupford, for your presentations.
Thank you
Have
all.
a good day, everyone.
Great day.
Okay, bye-bye.